I want you to think about this. Allegedly, Sean Carter is responsible for enacting Hype Williams to put Aaliyah on a faulty plane to move her out the way as punishment for rejecting him, and so he could level up Beyonce.
So Beyonce didn't just protect her marriage, she allegedly destroyed a man to do it. That man is Rymir Satterthwaite. He's 31 years old now, and for more than a decade, he's claimed to be the illegitimate son of Jay-Z. Not for clout, not for cash, just for acknowledgement. But after years of lawsuits, sealed records, and strategic silence, Rymir didn't just lose his case, he lost his freedom. And some insiders are saying Beyonce helped make sure of it.
You know, family's the most important thing to me, but you pointed out that if that was the most important thing to him, he would have accepted you into his life. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I meant like accept, but I do meant like accept as far as if you're talking about family, you cannot go up there talking about family if you have family.
Let's rewind, because this didn't start with jail time. It started with a teenage girl named Wanda who swore under oath that she conceived her son Rymir with Sean Carter in 1992 when she was just 16. Jay-Z has never taken a DNA test, not once. Every time the case made it into court, 2012, 2014, 2016, it hit the same wall, dismissed, sealed, erased. The pattern was so obvious it stopped looking like justice and started smelling like protection. And Rymir, he kept showing up, filing again, trying again, not for inheritance, but for identity. And every time, the Carter machine buried it deeper. But then something shifted. In May 2025, Rymir came back with new ammunition. This time, he wasn't just claiming to be Jay-Z's son, he was accusing his legal team of fraud. And not just petty errors. He claimed they lied in open court, filed false property statements, got sanctions imposed without evidence, and manipulated which judges handled the case. That's not theory, that's in the paperwork. Rymir's team filed a lawsuit naming multiple courts, individual judges, and specific instances of obstruction. They claimed that sealed court files were used as a shield, that false statements were knowingly submitted by Jay-Z's lawyers, and that every attempt to appeal was blocked before it even began. According to the filing, this wasn't just a legal defense, it was a coordinated operation to prevent one man from ever getting a paternity ruling. The reason? Wanda's age. If Jay-Z is the father, that means their relationship wasn't just messy, it may have been criminal. And this is where the spotlight moves. Because as the filings got more aggressive and the accusations more detailed, a different name started surfacing: Beyonce.
And it was pretty much said like, Jay doesn't really want awards. Well, he go to the Grammys.
Right.
He you know, come into the Black-owned spaces. Let's figure out how to work together so that way we have the relationship when it matters, not when it's convenient for you and your image. Because they all call us when the story is up that they don't like.
According to several industry sources familiar with the Carter legal circle, Beyonce wasn't just informed, she was involved. One source, a former assistant with ties to the Roc Nation orbit, said she paid off the cool lawyers, the ones who could make entire files vanish. And that phrase, cool lawyers, started making rounds in private circles. It didn't mean ethical, it meant invisible. Attorneys who could pressure judges behind closed doors, suppress affidavits, and quietly have records sealed under protective orders that never made the news. By mid-2025, whispers got louder that Beyonce was footing the bills, that she was directing strategy, that she wanted Rymir gone. Not because he was a threat to the marriage, but because he was a crack in the empire. Her billion-dollar brand is built on the illusion of family unity. Mother of three, victim turned victor. But behind that marketing gloss, Jay-Z's alleged trail of illegitimate children has become the elephant in every luxury boardroom.
And very, very honored that I got the response and the open heart, and people welcomed the album. The love I got from the country community tonight really made me feel so seen, and I'm very grateful.
And it's not just Rymir. Another woman, Letitia Macer, has claimed for years that she is Jay-Z's daughter, and that her family has known it from the beginning. She even says he bought her a home, but demanded she keep his photos off the walls. Now that might sound like hush money, or it might sound like control. Either way, the public's not supposed to know. The narrative is tight. Beyonce and Jay-Z, 3 children, no scandals. That's the blueprint, and anyone outside it gets erased. Meanwhile, in court filings, Jay-Z's legal team has dismissed Rymir's entire case as a decades-long campaign of harassment. But that phrase now feels less like a rebuttal and more like branding, a distraction from the pattern. Because every time this man has tried to prove his identity, the same things happen. Cases are sealed, judges step back, sanctions appear, and Beyonce keeps winning.
No, this part is not alleged. Jay-Z and his team, they have been ducking and dodging taking the DNA test.
Now, here's where things spiral. After more than a decade of relentless filings, Rymir didn't just lose his case. He was held in contempt and taken into custody. That's not a metaphor, that's on record. A man who asked for a DNA test ended up behind bars. And the timing? Right when Beyonce was in the middle of finalizing multiple global brand deals, including a new luxury athleisure line designed to reflect, wait for it, Black family excellence. You can't make that up. And here's what makes it stick. We're not just talking about court rulings. We're talking about the full Carter media blackout. No interviews, no public comment, no response from Roc Nation. Beyonce hasn't said a word. Not about Rymir, not about the lawsuit, not even about the headlines calling her husband's paternity scandal a time bomb. It's the silence that tells the story. And when that silence is paired with sudden jail time, people start to ask who's pulling strings.
Because, you know, I really wanted to find out who my father was, and for the case not to go how I was planning it, I really thought it was going to go different than...
Insiders close to Rymir have suggested that his final contempt charge was strategic, that delays in paperwork, missed filing windows, and technical noncompliance were exploited, not discovered. They say this wasn't about justice, it was about exhaustion, about making sure no judge would ever even look at that DNA test. One legal analyst who's tracked the case since 2014 called it erasure by bureaucracy, the kind of slow, grinding erasure that only works when money never runs out. And Beyonce has plenty of it. And then he was gone. No press release, no statement, no follow-up. One day, Rymir was on Instagram posting legal docs and screenshots. The next, nothing. His account went dark. His godmother stopped responding. No court docket updates, no mainstream coverage, just silence. And some insiders claim Beyonce made sure of it.
But why is everybody calling me now? And that's the problem that I have with this whole situation. But I am going to save this conversation for Jay-Z. Jay-Z, you're watching. I know you're watching because you got people calling me. Stop having people call me. You can call me yourself. You know how to get my number. You know, you got people calling me. Call me yourself, because this right here is going to go viral. The way my job works on the internet, everybody's going to be clipping and sharing on TikTok.
But the silence didn't last, and when the money trail started leaking, so did the truth. Buried inside those endless court filings, something strange surfaced. New legal names, attorneys present in the early cases, suddenly started appearing after the 2025 lawsuit, the one where Rymir accused Jay-Z's camp of fraud and obstruction. Their job wasn't just to file motions, it was to disappear problems. And these weren't unknown lawyers, they were high-powered fixers, the kind you don't find on Yelp. The same names show up on filings for Roc Nation, for Beyonce's Parkwood Entertainment, and for a quiet little Delaware holding company tied to her Ivy Park fashion line. It's not speculation, it's in the paperwork. The same signatories, the same addresses, the same timing. We're not talking coincidence, we're talking infrastructure. Because right as these lawyers got involved, Rymir's final case was sealed again, witness statements blocked, discovery motions denied, and then he was suddenly in contempt. They didn't look like justice, it looked like management. And behind that curtain, Beyonce was building a new empire. Ivy Park relaunches, CEO magazine covers, motherhood documentaries carefully curating her family life. Every headline, every photo shoot was selling the Carter brand as untouchable. But behind those glossy filters, her husband was back into the past. And not just by a DNA test.
This morning, rap mogul Jay-Z is denying allegations he assaulted a 13-year-old girl alongside rapper Sean Diddy Combs. That civil lawsuit filed against Combs in October was amended Sunday to include Jay-Z. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, says she was assaulted by both men.
In late 2024, civil court filings dropped, naming Jay-Z as a co-defendant alongside Sean Diddy Combs in a disturbing case tied to a 2000 VMA after-party. A woman alleged that both men were involved in a non-consensual encounter when she was underage. The timing? Too precise to ignore. That lawsuit made headlines for 2 weeks. Then it vanished. And so did Rymir's. Right as Jay-Z's past started threatening the family's public image, the most vocal person claiming to be his son was taken off the board. Not just legally, physically, held in contempt, locked up, silenced. Insiders claim Beyonce didn't just protect her husband, she protected the Carter dynasty. And when you look at the timeline, it's hard to argue. By the time the Diddy case reached national headlines, Beyonce was deep into production deals with multiple streaming platforms. Her next project? A family-focused docuseries following her as a mother and business mogul. A DNA scandal would have torn that entire narrative apart. Because if Rymir was proven to be Jay-Z's son and his mother was 16 at the time, the headlines wouldn't just say paternity. they'd say something else.
You know how we waited for this moment. We waited for, I am so good, congratulations. This is a moment, I think, that you see people clapping in the media room. You saw the reaction out there. What does this mean to you?
It's very surreal, and it's been 25 years of just working really hard and trying my best to keep growing and keep opening up doors.
That's why Dr. Lily Coley's statement hit like a live wire. She's not a random blogger. She's Rymir's godmother and legal guardian. Court documents. And she went on record saying their rights were violated by corrupt legal maneuvers. Sealed transcripts, denied appeals, judges refusing to hear arguments. That's not just emotional language, that's constitutional language. Due process, equal protection, the kind of claims that attract federal oversight. And what did Jay-Z's legal team say in response? They called it harassment. They didn't refute the facts, they labeled the entire case a nuisance and asked for dismissal. So we have to ask, what are they really protecting? Jay-Z has publicly admitted to infidelity. We've all heard the lyrics. On 4 or 44, on Everything Is Love, even on Lemonade, the wounds were broadcast. But admitting to cheating is easy when the damage has already been contained. What hasn't been admitted, what's never even been acknowledged, is that Jay-Z might have fathered a child with a teenage girl in the early 90s. If that's true, then every song, every apology, every business built on the Carter name becomes questionable. And Beyonce, who has bet her billion-dollar brand on the image of resilience and loyalty, would have everything to lose.
Oh, no, that was it. No, when I get nervous, I tell the truth.
Because the truth is, her empire isn't built on music anymore. It's built on image, on illusion. She's not just a singer. She's a luxury archetype. The loyal wife, the super mom, the moral compass in a world of chaos. Her collaborations aren't just creative, they're strategic. And when she and Jay-Z dropped their joint album, Everything Is Love, they made it clear. They were unbothered, united, and above reproach. One line in particular now rings with eerie relevance. For the 1000th time, the kid ain't mine. That lyric wasn't about any tabloid story, it was a preemptive strike. Because if Rymir's story had gone public, if a court had ruled that Jay-Z was the father, then the entire Carter story collapses. Not just the relationship, but the architecture. Beyonce's social capital depends on control. She controls the lighting, the angles, the access. There are no random moments in her world. Though if a young man from New Jersey had been legally declared her husband's biological son, conceived before their marriage with a minor, and denied for 3 decades, that wouldn't just be embarrassing, it would be brand annihilation. We examined Beyonce's role in this dynasty. It's easy to mistake silence for passivity, but that's never been her mode. Her silence is curated, sharpened, a shield and a weapon. For Beyonce, love was never the currency, control was. And that control doesn't just extend to her performances or product lines, it defines her presence. She doesn't grant interviews unless the questions are pre-approved. She avoids live TV. Her tours operate with the precision of military campaigns. And when she does speak, through music, through visuals, through one-word captions, it's always as a final word, not an invitation. This calculated distance has long fueled her mystique, but it also allows her to operate with plausible deniability. She appears untouchable, while everything around her bends to protect the brand. And in the Carter household, the brand is the marriage. It's not warmth or spontaneity we see in public, but a kind of mutual performance. Smiles at galas, polished red carpets, matching Grammys attire. Even their vulnerability is staged, sold, and sanitized. From Lemonade to Black is King, her storytelling has always been about reclaiming power, not revealing weakness. Which is why the idea of a secret son isn't just inconvenient, it's incompatible with the world she spent decades designing.
With Beyonce, it's just a weird thing because I do love her so much and I would never ever want to do anything to hurt her or her image because she's important to us, but it's just a weird thing right now. I love Beyonce still.
That's what makes this particular scandal so different. Most celebrity marriages crack under infidelity, but the Carters turn cheating into content, selling their trauma as a redemption arc. What they couldn't sell, what couldn't be spun, was an outside child with legal implications and a mother who was allegedly underage. That's not a narrative, that's a liability. And from Beyonce's point of view, it's one she couldn't afford, not because it threatened her emotionally, but because it threatened her structurally. If the marriage falters, the brand fractures. If the brand fractures, the empire crumbles. So the illusion must be maintained at all costs. Even her feminism, celebrated, quoted, dissected in academic circles, hinges on that illusion of power and unity. But when the mask slips, what we glimpse isn't liberation, it's consolidation. The kind of decision-making that protects an image, not a person. The irony is brutal. The woman hailed for empowering others may have quietly helped erase someone who simply wanted to be seen, not out of malice but necessity. In her world, emotion is a liability, and justice is negotiable, as long as it stays off camera. And that's why the framing theory stings, because if Beyonce's silence wasn't about loyalty but strategy, if her distance was actually orchestration, then Rymir's story isn't just a tragedy, it's a sacrifice, a calculated move in a game where legacy matters more than lineage. And once we admit that possibility, the rest starts to look different too. The sealed filings, the contempt charges, the blackout. Not random, not reactionary, but chosen, planned, executed. And maybe that's why the alleged framing theory doesn't feel so far-fetched anymore. Multiple legal observers have pointed out inconsistencies in how Rymir's case was handled. Judges recused with no reason, orders filed without signatures, statements sealed that had no legal basis for privacy. And then, after 12 years of legal action, he was jailed. Not for committing a crime, but for allegedly misusing legal process. That's not normal, that's surgical.
I don't get no what you got in your head, that neural link. You'll never outthink me. Ever.
So the question becomes, what was Beyonce willing to do? Because protecting a husband is one thing. Protecting an empire, that's a different level. And if that means wiping out the only person who could blow up the narrative, even if that person might be your husband's son, then we're not talking about loyalty anymore. We're talking about cold, calculated preservation. The kind of moves you don't see unless you look closely at the paper trail. And when we follow it, from sealed paternity cases to overlapping attorneys to sudden incarcerations, the story doesn't point to justice, it points to erasure. And now, as more lawsuits stack up, as past scandals resurface, and former friends turn into federal informants, there's a growing theory in the industry that Beyonce's empire runs on more than music. It runs on control. Total narrative control, editorial control, legal control. And when that control is threatened, it doesn't just push back, it crushes. So if that control once meant framing Jay-Z's own alleged son to preserve the myth, we have to wonder, what else has been buried to keep the throne intact? And maybe more importantly, who's next? We want to know what you think. Did Beyonce go too far to protect her dynasty? Is this about loyalty or legacy? Let us know in the comments. We're watching. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and don't believe everything you're told.